Crochet Along with Carol. Today we're going to work on learning how to read a pattern, some new stitches, and we're going to do this by making a simple dish rag. I like using a dish rag for a brand new project for a new crocheter because it's very simple to make. It's a simple shape. It's the same stitches over and over, and the dishes you wash with it won't care in the least whether your tension is completely stable or not. So go ahead, try your best, and remember, you're beginning to learn to crochet, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Let's get started. The first thing you're going to do, I want you to get your guide out, and I want you to turn to the pattern at the back. I'm going to teach you how to read the pattern, what the abbreviations mean, and also some new stitches along the way. The instructions, the written instructions and pictures on how to do the stitches are included in the guide. So if you have trouble learning them from the video, you can go ahead and look in your guide and see if that helps. Also, remember in your guide that you have my email address to send me an email if you get stuck or need help. If you're new to Crochet Along with Miss Carol and you didn't get a guide and a kit from the library, you can find this guide on the handout section on the programs menu on the front of our website. Just click on programs, scroll all the way down to the bottom, and it'll say handouts for youth programs. If you click on that, it'll be right there. All right then, let's do some crocheting. Okay, so here we have the yarn that we're using today. I'm using a bright color blue, so hopefully it's easy for you to see what I'm doing. If you look at your pattern, the first thing it says is that you'll need about 150 yards of yarn to make this project. I use acrylic, that's what you got in your bag. It's easy to work with for beginners, and it's a little more stretchy than cotton, so it's easier to work back into your stitches as you're making those rows. So if you've used up all of your yarn on your chains when you're practicing the last couple of weeks, any yarn that you buy would be okay. The first thing we're going to do is make a chain. And it says here, after your abbreviations here, it says chain 21. So we want to make a chain with 21 chain stitches. I'm not making my tail as long as I usually do for this. When we get to the end of the project, I'll show you why. So I made my slip knot, just like I showed you in the first video. I'm going to put my yarn in my hand so I'm ready to work. Remember that my tension between my pointer finger and my middle and thumb just keeps it straight, not tight, not loose, just straight, just right, just like Goldilocks. All right, I'm going to yarn over and pull through. You should be good at making chains by now. If not, practice, 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 and come back to this. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. I don't know if you noticed, but as my chain got longer, I moved my work through my fingers so that I was holding fairly close to where I'm working. Again, I'm using a size H, and this is one of my favorite crochet hooks. It's got a fancier handle on it, and it was one that I treated myself with. So when you get better at crochet, you might want to add fancier crochet hooks on your wish list for birthdays and Christmas or whatever gift-giving times your family might enjoy. So the first row here on your thread, it says single crochet in the second chain from the hook and each chain across, and then to turn it. And the little 20 at the end is how many stitches you should have when you're finished with the end of that row. So I had chained 21, remember? I'm going to skip this first chain, and I'm going to leave that. They call that a turning chain, and we'll talk about that in a minute too. And I'm going to go. Now, there are different ways you can do this. You can put your hook through the front where it makes the little V. You're going to slip it in there, yarn over, pull your loop through, and there you have 2 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull a loop through those 2 loops. And then we're going to do that again on the next hook, on the next stitch. Put your hook through the chain, yarn over, pull your loop up so that you have 2 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull that through, and you have 1 loop on your hook again. We're going to do that again. We said we're going to do it all the way across until we get to the last chain. If you need to rewind the video and watch how I did that again, please feel free to do that. Sometimes it takes many times to hear the same instructions for it to make sense. So we're going to go all the way across. Are you stitching with me? Are you getting those loops? Remember, your tension should be even so that your stitches come out even. But if they're not quite exactly even, that's okay. Like I said, the dishes won't mind. And the nice thing about crochet is if you make a mistake, you can always pull it out and start over. I tell my kids, no stitch is ever wasted, because every time you have to do it over, you've learned something new. All right, I'm getting towards the end of my chain now. We're going to get down here. Here we go. All right, now I'm going to check and make sure that I have stitched in each the number of stitches that I'm supposed to have. Remember this, we called this our turning chain, and we're not going to count that right now. So we're going to count from here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. All right, I have the right number of stitches. It's a good idea when you're first learning to count your stitches every row you make. Now, before I turn around and start going back the other way with my new stitch, I'm going to take one of my stitch marker. I gave you one in your kit. If you don't have a kit and you don't have stitch markers, you can buy these at the store, or you can use a paper clip or a safety pin or another piece of yarn and just tie around it. I like these little rubbery plastic ones. They're easy to use. They're easy to slide in. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that in that first stitch that I made, so that it marks it, and when I'm coming back, I know what stitch I'm supposed to finish with on this row. Now, I'm going to turn my work around, all right, because I'm going to work back towards the other end. And now, my next row 2, it says to chain 2. So 1, 2. Now you'll see the note here says that this counts as the first half double crochet here and throughout your work. So every time you chain 2 at the beginning of a row in this project, you count that as a half double crochet. Then, because that counts as the half double crochet, I'm going to skip this first stitch, or this last stitch I made on the row, the first stitch going back. I'm going to yarn over and go in, insert into my second stitch. I'm going to yarn over and pull my stitch through. Now I have 3 loops on my hook. 1, 2, 3. To finish the stitch, I'm going to yarn over, and look, my yarn's getting a little long on my finger. It's okay, I've still got enough tension, but I'm going to need to readjust it soon. I'm going to bring it through 1, 2, and 3 stitches, all 3 stitches, and I have made a half double crochet. We're going to do a row of half double crochets all the way across on the second row. So yarn over, go through my stitch, yarn over, pull through. I have 3 loops, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops, and do it again, and again, and again. Now, before I get going too far, I'm going to come back here and remember that first, this is the first stitch I made, but this is that first chain that counts as that half double crochet, and I'm going to use a stitch marker to go in here. And again, if you don't have enough, you used your other stitch marker, you can use a paper clip or a safety pin to do this. I'm just going to mark that that's where I want my last stitch to go when I come back on row 3. So here we go, yarn over, 3 loops, yarn over, go through, yarn over, 3 loops, pull it through, all the way across. If you lose a stitch on your yarn, just go back a little bit and try it again. The more you do it, the better you'll get. All right, I'm getting towards the end here again. Here we go. All right, now, this is where it gets just a little bit tricky. Okay, so I did that. This I put in there where my last stitch needs to go. So I'm going to put it in with the same place where my stitch marker is. And there we go. And I pull this out. And lay it there so I can use it again when I'm ready. Now I'm ready for row 3. So this time I'm going to do one chain. I like to do my chain before I turn. Let's turn it because that's what the instructions say. And then we're going to do a chain. Now this is a turning chain. And when you do a turning chain, when you're going to do single crochet row, you don't skip that first stitch and you don't count that turning chain as your first single crochet. I don't know why you do it for a half double crochet and a double crochet and you don't do it for a single. It just works out that way. So I'm going to do my single crochet stitches in that first stitch. 1, and again. 2, and again. See, I'm not yarning over before I go through my stitch this time. I'm just doing a single crochet. Now, before I get too far, I'm going to use my stitch marker. I don't want to mark that turning chain. I want to mark that first stitch that I did, that's where my last stitch will go. So we're going to go do our single crochets all the way across again. All the way. All right. Now I want to be careful here. This is the stitch, that first half double crochet that I did the full stitch. I'm going to go into that and do my single crochet there. But remember that this chain counted as my first half double crochet. That is where I need to put my hook, and it's a little tricky to get it in there. Oh, come on, I've got to do this. There we go. I want 2 pieces of yarn coming across the top of my hook. You see that? I'm going to yarn over and pull through just like I had done on the other stitches and make my single crochet. I can take that marker out now and hang on to it. Don't put it too far because you're going to use it again here in just a minute. Now, the next row, row 4 down here, it tells me that for row 4 through row 20, I'm going to repeat rows 2 and 3, ending with a row 2. So I'm going to go back up here to row 2, and it remembers, I told us that we want to chain 2. So I'm going to turn my work. Going to chain 2, 1, 2, and then I'm going to start with my half double crochets. That chain 2 counted as my first one, so I'm not going to stitch in that first stitch. I'm going to yarn over, go through that second stitch, yarn over, pull it through, and then pull through all 3 loops on my hook. I'm going to do just a couple of those so that my row is stabilized. And then before I forget where it was, I'm going to make sure that I put my little marker here so that I know where that last stitch is going to go. Now, we have done our first row. I'm going to make a tally mark right there. We finished our second row. We finished our third row. And now we're on our fourth row. I'm keeping track because I need to know when I have reached my 20th row and finished it, and I'm ready to start on the next instruction in my pattern. So we're going to go all the way across. With the half double. So what we're doing is we are alternating. We're doing a row of single crochet and then a row of half double crochet. And it gives your project a little bit of an interesting texture rather than doing it all in the same stitch. Besides, it gives you practice on 2 different stitches that you can now use and say you know how to do. All the way across. At this time, I'm going to double check and make sure that I still have 20 stitches in my row. One of the big mistakes that I see beginners make is that they get confused with those turning chains and where they're supposed to put that last stitch. And sometimes they'll add a stitch or they'll lose a stitch and then their projects don't have even sides. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. We did it right. Turn the work. We're going to do ahead to row 3, which means we're going to chain 1. And then we're going to single crochet right in here. Give a couple of stitches before I put that stitch marker back in. And then don't forget to mark that we finished row 4. Then you go ahead and crochet across. So you go ahead and keep working on that and marking your rows so that you know when you get to the point where you have 20 rows. I started one already, and I've got all 20 rows. I can count them. Do you see these little holes? These are the holes that are made in the side by doing that turning chain. So it's easy for me also to count, just to make sure that I didn't lose count on my tallies. I have 1, 2 rows. So for every hole is 2 rows. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, and 20. Now go ahead on your pattern where it says border. It's going to be on the other side of the thing. And for round 1, now it says to single crochet. We're turning at the end of that row. And it says to single crochet. We need to give ourselves that turning chain for our single crochet. So I'm going to chain 1 so that it puts my hook at the right level. So it makes a nice square corner there. And I'm going to single crochet all the way across, just as if I was adding just another row. But when we get to the end of this, then we're going to do something a little different. All the way across. And remember, I've been doing this a long time. So my stitches are going to go faster than your stitches will. You keep practicing it and it'll go fast and smooth, just like Miss Carol. But even after crocheting for over 20 years, I still have to pull things out and redo them because I make mistakes. So here I am at the end again. Remember, I'm going to go ahead and put my crochet hook in there and do that last of the actual half double, and then I'm going to go ahead and do my single crochet into that turning chain. Now, in each corner, I want to make 3 single crochets. That gives me 1 for this side of my project, 1 for my corner, and 1 more for the next side of the project. Now I'm going to single crochet in the ends of my rows. So there's 1. It's that big hole again, that's easy to see. Then in between the holes, because remember there's that single crochet row, all the way down the side. All the way down, just a single crochet. This is going to give us a nice border that will help our dish rag hold its shape and even up those sides just a little bit. Now we're not going into a stitch here, we're just going through where we can work through. but you make your single crochet in the same way. Pull up 2 loops, yarn over and pull a loop through there. All right, now our last one here is the single crochet row that we started with. Remember, I'm going to do 1 for the side, 1 for the corner, and 1 for the next side. Now, remember I told you that on this project I didn't leave as long a tail as I could have, and I would tell you why. I'm going to just run that tail right along the edge here, and I'm going to crochet right over the top of it. So here we go, holding it there, and that will make sure that that tail end is tucked away nice and neat and won't unravel. All the way down, I'm single crocheting again. And this is along the chain that we made the first time. So all the way across the bottom here. Now see, I split my yarn there somehow. So what I'm going to do is just pull it out and try it again. I think I might have gotten my yarn from my tail hooked up in there somehow. There, that slides nicely. See, even Miss Carol makes mistakes. All the way across. We're almost to the corner again. I'm still running that tail behind there so that it makes it nice and tucked away and isn't going to come flopping out. All right, now I'm at my last stitch, so I'm going to do 1 for this side, 1 for the corner, and 1 for the next side. There we go. And I still have a little bit of that tail left, so I'm just going to keep running it under there. And we're going to go in each row down this side. Now, this is a little tricky because those double crochets have 2 holes there. So I'm going to skip that hole and go into the next one. There. And go there. And then make sure that I just do so that we have 20 stitches across the end. And if you don't get them exactly right, the dishes won't mind. Okay, now I'm up here and I'm going to stitch into the corner. Again, 1 for the side, 1 for the corner, 1 to come around that corner. And here I'm back where I began. So I need to start a second row or a second round. I'm going to put my hook through that first stitch and pull a loop through, just as if I was going to make a single crochet. But instead of making a single crochet, I'm going to go ahead and pull that loop right through that next loop, and I've made a slip stitch. I'm going to give myself a turning chain, and then in that same stitch that I just worked in, I'm going to work a single crochet. So there we go. And then I can just go on around my piece. So you go ahead and work on that. I'll come back in a moment with the finished dish rag and show you how to finish your project. Okay, so you have your border all done. I've got mine back all the way around, single crocheted all the way around my piece until I'm back up here to the front. Remember how we slip stitched in on the last round? We're going to do that again. I'm going to go into that first round. This was my turning chain. This is my stitch. I'm going to go in there, pull up that loop, pull that same loop right through here, and make a slip stitch. Now it's time to finish my project. That's the end of where I need to crochet. So I'm going to yarn over again, and I'm going to do a chain. And I'm going to pull that through. I'm done with my hook. I'm going to go ahead and tighten this down and pull this through. Snip that with a pair of scissors, which I forgot to bring with me, so I'll have to do that before I do when I get that back to my desk. But I have another one that I had already completed, all finished off, and I have my tail. Now this time I did leave quite a bit of tail. So I've got my yarn needle. I learned this little trick a long time ago. I'm going to take my yarn needle, I'm going to put my yarn over the needle, pull it tight so that it kind of flattens it, and then I'm going to put the eye of my needle, stick that yarn right through there, and it's easy to thread your needle that way. If you try to stick that end with all those little pieces in through that eye, that can be really difficult. Now I've got my needle threaded, and I'm going to weave my end through. So I'm just going to take it through and then back through this way, through each stitch, back and forth. And I'm going to do maybe 5, 6, maybe 7 stitches that way, just so I have a few inches where it's woven in. And then I'm going to come back the other direction and do the same thing back the other way. Here we go. All the way back through. All the way back through. And then one more time. 3 times is the charm. I'm going to go back the way I came. And that way, my work should not come unraveled. There you go. Congratulations. You have created a dish rag. And you can use that to wash the dishes for Mom and Dad. Thank you for coming to Crochet Along with Miss Carol, and we'll see you next month when we will try to make or learn to make a bookmark. See you then.